lawful, and that's what we're trying to do. We've been known to push the Overton window though quite a bit. We do protest police departments that say that the flyers that we push out to the public are hate speech. So we will confront them, and we will protest outside of their places, legally and lawfully, of course. We also will protest against Zionist Christian preachers like John Hagee, who we believe that his agenda is not for America, that his agenda serves more in the lines of Israel. So we protested there. We protested synagogues, again, legally and lawfully, talking about some of the practices that we don't feel are, humane in the United States, like the matzah v'peh practice. We just don't think that that's nice. And, we do it.
Could you explain what that practice is for people who don't know?
It's when,
unless you can't legally say, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to get you in trouble, but it has to do with mouths and.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It has to do with mouths and inappropriate stuff. So, yeah, I'm gonna let the audience go and Google that, matzah v'peh or a bris. Look into that. And yeah, so we talk about that. And when we've gone to the synagogue and protested illegally and lawfully, we've actually made them pretty upset. And one of the rabbis tried to run over one of our guys with a car. But he wasn't charged with anything, of course. But yeah, so we do majority of the things we do are flyer drops. But we do these things called the Name the Nose tour. And we go out there once a year, and it's about 10 to 14 days, and we meet up with about 10 to 12 guys. And then we do all sorts of activism every day. So that's what we do.
Super. Now, I want to ask you something before we get into the topics we've got scheduled tonight. I want to ask you something, because obviously I sort of cut my teeth in politics because I've consistently campaigned against the sort of demographic changes that are taking place all over the Western world. Now, I am very, very familiar with your work in terms of your opposition to Jewish overrepresentation, Zionism, wars of aggression in the Middle East, the abuse of powers in Israel, which target the indigenous Palestinian people. Everyone knows your viewpoints on that. But genuinely curious, what is your view on the demographic changes that are taking place in countries like America, like the UK, France, and Germany, where white people are headed towards minority status within the next sort of 30 to 50 years?
That's a good question. That was one of the things. Well, there's a process to waking up to all this stuff, right? There's a lot of documentaries that, people tune into. Europa, Greatest Story Never Told, right? And for me, I was a lefty. I was born and raised in California. I was a self-hating white. And I was even an Obama. I went to Obama's inauguration. I supported Bernie Sanders, right? And then I got on the Trump train, and I thought that Trump was going to lock her up. So all of this stuff, like, I took a different route from most people, which is most people go from race into the can I say JQ? Can I say JQ? Is that?
Yeah. That's fine. So okay. Yeah, most people go from race to the JQ.
Yeah, race to the JQ. For me, so race was the last thing that kind of hit me. I had learned about white genocide, and I knew about it, but I didn't really understand it till it actually hit my city. And I was in a predominantly white city in Petaluma, California, and multiculturalism just shook that place overnight. I mean, it was one of those places where if you saw an African American, in the town, you'd ask them, "Hey, man, are you lost? Do you want to ride home?" Right? Something like that. Just be nice. And it totally changed within 2 to 5 years. And it was a whole different story. So I didn't really understand it till it actually happened. And then I saw some videos. I saw a documentary called White Privilege, the movie. And it shows a lot of white people being attacked and beaten. I'm talking about women, children, old people beaten by non-whites. For no reason. And it's an hour. I really had to stop it about a half an hour, but I actually had to see this because the programming was so strong to not call out, the other races. It's hard enough to talk about the JQ, but that took me a lot of a lot of conditioning to start calling that out too. So I didn't really realize all that stuff till about 4 years into the journey of learning about the JQ to actually understand the severity of the European race being genocided by these people.
Well, that's really interesting. And it's really interesting because I've actually heard a similar story to that before from a guy that I work with very regularly called Patrick Slattery. He was actually on the left. He was an anti-war protester. And when he started to look into the people behind America's foreign wars, he was then drawn to Dr. David Duke. He was then drawn to looking at other issues. And he became somebody who was first aware of the JQ, but then aware of the racial aspects. So that's really, really interesting that you came to it that way around, because I came to it obviously the other way around. I came to the realization of race before I came to the realization of exactly what the driving forces were behind demographic change, behind mass immigration, and behind the adoption of sort of suicidal Western liberal democracy.